Hello, welcome to TrueHoop with me, Jarod, Hector, and Coach David Thorpe. How are you, sir?
I'm doing fantastic, my friend. How are you?
I'm good. We are this season, man. We are winding down, and all these games are mattering. They have got issues. People crying at refs saying they want to have protests to wins. I'm like, what even happens? Even if they protest, you're not going to get the W. Like, you still lost anyway.
Yeah,
it is what it is.
Yeah,
but we'll get to that in a minute. First, want to start with the Paul George injury. I did watch it because I didn't watch that game live, but I went back and saw it. Obviously, he collided with Lou Dort on the landing, and it looks like the knee got extended out in an unnatural way when you watch it. Luckily, they're saying it's a sprain, no severe ligament damage. But when you sprain your knee, ligaments do get damaged, but not in a severe way. It's just a matter of the grade on the sprain. He's certainly going to be out the rest of the regular season. That's going to obviously impact the Clippers because they are right now fifth in the Western Conference. We'll see if they're able to hold on to that spot. Kawhi's playing, but they were playing well with both those guys. And, this time of the year, guys are exhausted. Things happen. I mean, this wasn't a non-contact. It was contact. But this is the time of the year now where injuries, especially in a parity-driven league like we are right now, you're missing a key guy for any stretch of time, and it's going to be really difficult to overcome.
it's probably the case. Yeah, it's probably the case where their season is curtains in terms of having a chance to win a championship. Could they be spunky in round one? Maybe. If they can get through round one and he's back, he should be able to get his rhythm going in round two. But they've not been a great team for long. Maybe not at all. Good, not great.
Yep. 500 over the last 10 games.
Yeah, it's problematic. Exactly. So they were my pick to win the West. I don't know who to pick now, but I can't pick a Clipperless Paul George. And just because they claim reevaluating in 2 weeks doesn't mean he'll be back in 2 weeks for sure.
And that's the thing that fans, when you hear that, when any team says, "Oh, we're going to reevaluate in 2 or 3 weeks,"
that means
that doesn't mean they're playing right off the jump.
Yeah.
What it means is we're going to check to see where we are with the injury. If everything is perfect, they're still not playing that day. They got to ramp themselves back up into shape to be able to play. So you're at least a month out when you talk about 2 weeks.
Right? I would guess the earliest we'd see him is like April, 17th, something around there. So that's game 3 or game 4 of the postseason.
And for the Clippers, you could be down 0-2 at that point. Shit. Or
and are they guaranteed not to be in the play-in?
No, they're not. They are certainly not guaranteed to be in the play-in. Right now, the Clippers are 38-35. They are only a game and a half ahead of the Timberwolves, who are in 7th place right now. The Timberwolves, by the way, who just got back Karl-Anthony Towns.
Who looked good last night.
So, I mean, look, it's going to be so important in the West. If you get yourself into that top 6, you don't have to worry about the play-in. And if you get that top 4 seed, that 4th seed, and you can get home court advantage, oh, my God. Huge, because who the hell knows?
So in Paul George's case, Jarod, it could very well be the case where he returns, let's say April 17, and the Clippers are in the Bahamas.
True, yeah.
I mean, this is what I mean about curtains for the season.
And I'm sure let's say if that is the case, and they're down 0-2 or down 0-3, I mean, at that point, why even bother bringing them back for one game, right? It's like, probably not going to win anyway, right? Like, I mean, so. Yeah, it's timing of this stuff is really unfortunate, but we'll monitor that situation.
Right.
All right, David. Last night, a very important game in the West: Mavericks and the Golden State Warriors. Golden State wins 127-125.
This is wild.
A wild game. In the third quarter, the referee, after a play, signaled Warriors ball and Warriors timeout. All right, they go to everybody goes to their sideline, does their thing, blah blah, whatever. They come back, and apparently during that holdover period, the in-arena announcer said, Mavericks ball, right? So, okay, sure, that's what you said. That's what everybody heard. So the Mavericks come back out, and they look like they are I don't even know what they look like. They're nowhere near the Warriors basket. They look like they're about to get the ball and do their own thing. Meanwhile, the Warriors are like, well, they're not going to guard us. So they get the ball because the referee gives the ball back to the Warriors. They score a layup, and the Mavericks are looking around dumbfounded like, what the hell happened? I thought it was our ball. Now, Mark Cuban he actually not didn't stop the game, but he went to the scorer's table.
I want to talk about that too.
Which, listen, that's very
fucked
much
up.
Billionaire privilege.
That's some bullshit. Escort his ass out of the arena.
Which is
and
bullshit.
I like Mark. I'm friends with Mark.
Which is
you
bullshit.
Can't have that. You can't have that.
Can't have him doing
it was
that.
It was like the Russian guy coming down in the Olympics
yeah.
and saying, no, stop the clock. The referees didn't do it. Some dude in the stands did. Yeah,
exactly. So that was wrong. So they filed a protest against the league saying that the ref cheated, and Mark said, well, I think it's such a crucial thing in a 2-point game. And I hate when that happens because people like to do that cause and effect thing. Oh, well, they lost by 2. If they had these 2 points, that happened in the third quarter. A million things happened after that you could have won the game, and you didn't. You didn't lose the game because of this one particular play. It was a weird play. I admit it seems strange, and that gets into a whole other topic about what the in-arena announcer says. And by the way, the in-arena announcer doesn't just make shit up. They say whatever the official tells them is what's happening. The official was wrong. Shit happens, whatever, but that ain't why you guys lost the game.
Okay, but I actually can talk expertly about this play because I used to do something nefarious when I was a high school coach. I don't know if I ever told you this before. I was a fucking shark, man. I didn't cheat, but I was, sometimes I cheated, but only at camps.
You push the rules.
I could rig in camps. I would rig some drafts to make sure my team was loaded. But in this case, long before you were probably watching college basketball, Memphis State, which is now Memphis, but Memphis State had a coach named Dana Kirk, who ultimately, I think he passed, but he was a kind of famous guy, also got in some trouble. And I saw him once at halftime, ball out of bounds. This might have been even like the first year they got rid of the jump ball at half. I really don't remember. I just remember, I was a middle school kid, high school kid, whatever. And he had his team take the ball out of bounds, but he had all of his players, except for his guard, lined up on the other side of the court that they had just defended before. Or just shot out before. And the dumbass defense stood next to their guy, man to man. And Dana's guy ran to the basket for the new half and got a layup. And I remembered that when I became a coach, 8 years later, whatever. And so what I did, it was an orchestrated Broadway show for me. Did I ever tell you this story?
No.
I would have, if it was our ball at halftime, I would have 4 of my 5 starters go out about 30 seconds before, because in high school they have a clock winding down. I'm sure they do in college and pros. They have a clock winding down. And in high school, these guys want to go home. These referees want to go home. They worked all day. No one's making a living coaching high school. And so the second that thing went to 0, they're like, scoreboard guy, put the clock on 8. Let's go, ball and bounds, right? So I would send my guys out 30 seconds to a minute left in the half. And I'd have them line up on the side of the court. We shot out the first half. Mm-hmm. Okay. And normally the other team is trying to get last minute coaching in, or they're just disorganized. It's high school. And so these guys scurry out because they have to blow the buzzer. There's a buzzer at the 8-minute to start the new 8-minute clock. They come running on the court. I would tell my guys, everyone start yelling, I got him, you got him. Just make noise. Just distract people. Meanwhile, my most eloquent speaker each year, which is not easy to find when they're 15 and 16. Trust me, my son could not talk in 16, not in complete sentences anyway. He would, I would say, you tell the referee, I would make him repeat this, Jarod. Mr. Referee, I know it's our ball going in that direction, and I know the rules state you have to point which way we're going one time. Please don't do it more than once. We know what we're doing. Referees don't care. These guys want to go home. Meanwhile, the other team is confused. Right. We're matching up. And so then we listen, I was a jerk. Not only would we immediately, my little guard, Timmy Walker, got a bunch of points this way. Little Timmy would race the court and get a layup. But meanwhile, our guys would run halfway down. We'd pick up in denial man. The other team didn't know what was going on. So very often we get the 2 points and then we get the turnover because they would get the 5-second call. Okay. So my point to you is this. If you tried to do it on me, and by the way, I got to tell you this. I had a player named Jimmy Fortner, who's probably 54 years old now, 53. Jimmy we call him the Whopper, big, tall, white kid. He's a good player. He was like 6'5", coming off the bench for us on JV. We were very good. We did it to the same coach twice for a whole nother reason. He was a jerk to me the year before. I don't forget that shit. We became good friends. But we did it a second time in the season. And Jimmy looked at me and says, Coach, I'm nauseous. I said, Jimmy, what's wrong? He's like, it's going to work again, isn't it? I said, yeah, it is. Sit down. Shut up. So my point is, when you tried to do something like that to us, man, I was racing on the court. Wait a second. You said it was our ball. No one on the Mavs, Jarod, did anything.
Nothing.
And they were not standing out of bounds.
Yeah.
When you are an NBA player and you see the bad guys with a man out of bounds next to a referee and 4 dudes next to him, someone should be doing something.
Mm-hmm.
So Mark Cuban should have been screaming at Jason Kidd.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the camera angle that I saw, you couldn't see Kidd. I have no idea what he was doing. But I do know one thing. The 5 Mavericks players on the court stood and watched.
They did.
Nobody did anything. That would be my issue. Mark Cuban, yell at your team, yell at your coach, yell at your coaching staff. Again, I didn't see what they did. All I know is I didn't see anyone. I would have been diving on the court. Give me a technical if you want. But remember now in the video, the referee pointed Warriors ball. I don't know what he said.
Right.
I know he pointed Warriors ball.
Sure did.
And you know how I know that? Steve Kerr clapped.
Yeah.
It's all on video. That is a group that was fast asleep at the wheel from A to Z, and you lost by 2 points, and you have no one to blame but yourselves.
No, you're dead on that. If you see something that looks weird or strange, don't just right? Like, what's the thing they say when you're like traveling? If you see something, say something. Say something. Don't just stand there like, oh, I don't know. Like,
right. I saw Luka do a little money thing. Like,
yeah. Oh, and that was at the end of the game because he didn't get the foul call. Listen, we've talked about Luka.
That's some bullshit.
Cries after every single time he gets to the rim. By the way, Luka had plenty of free throw attempts in that game, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. He scored 30, didn't he?
Yeah, he was good. Went to the line 10 times, scored 30 points. Like, I mean, come on. Like, it is what it is.
Right.
No, listen, again, that ain't why you lost. There was a whole rest of the third and full fourth quarter for you to do better, and you didn't. So, what can I say? Do better.
Mavericks, you were fast asleep. You deserve to lose.
And, it's that kind of play and lack of being organized. How do you trust this team come postseason that you're going to?
I don't.
Why? I know you don't. Right?
I don't.
Like, you just come on.
Yeah.
So anyway, they lost. They are now below the Warriors. They are in 7th, and they're in the play-in, or 8th, in the play-in. And it is what it is. It's really unfortunate. And David, you have an article coming out, and this is important about crunch time execution. Now that wasn't crunch time; that was in the third quarter.
Right.
But still, it's knowing shot. Time, game. These are things they teach you all. Good coaches teach you very early on in youth basketball. By the time you're a pro, you should be an expert at this kind of thing, knowing what the time and score is, where you are, what's going on. That lackadaisical, like whatever. And look, I get it. Lapses happen, long 82-game season. But for you guys, where you want to lock in a top 6 spot, come on, you can't be having lapses like that.
I completely agree. So I was supposed to write about something else. Sweet 16. I was supposed to write about the NCAA tournament guys I've liked. Yep. And then I saw the Mavericks, coincidentally, beat the Lakers Friday of last week, so almost a week ago, on up 4 with seconds to play, and the Lakers were, and the Mavericks won. They were 90+% chance to win, according to GameCast at ESPN. They won because the Lakers chose to double team Kyrie, which was weird to me, knowing that a 3-point shot could hurt you. They got a steal out of it. So up 4 with the ball, 38 seconds left.
You figure, right?
And looking good for LA, as I wrote, advantage LA, big advantage LA. D'Angelo Russell misses a wide open 3, whatever happens. They double Kyrie again, which I thought was kind of weird. AD is just asleep, getting down the court, runs the middle of the paint. Maxi Kleber's at the top of the key. He's not shooting well from 3 this year, not shooting well lately, but he's in the game, and he's a 3-point shooter. They throw it to Kleber. He races out there, and I'm telling you, it would rank as a top 10 sack in the NFL for the way he tackled Kleber. Kleber gets 3 free throws. It's now a 1-point game, right? The next time down, after I think they make AD gets fouled, makes a free throw, whatever, and he falls asleep again. AD is in the middle of the paint. He's helping on Kyrie that has 2 guys already on him.
Yep.
They throw it to Maxi Kleber. He's 4 steps away from Maxi Kleber. Needed to be 2. Kleber's tall. He gets it over AD. They hit a 3. They win the game.
They win the game.
It was terrible. Terrible execution. Just fast asleep on defense. And so I have I can make an argument that it doesn't matter that the league has got more parity now than before, that there may not be any more clutch games in terms of close games. Mm-hmm. There were only 11 games decided by, I think, 4 points or less. I looked it up last year in all the postseason, 11. Between the two teams that went to the finals anyway. Yep. So I didn't look at every single game. But for those 2 teams, they played in a combined 11 games that had real clutch minutes, right? Maybe there'll be more of that because the team's more even. Maybe there won't be. If there are, again, these meaningful minutes need mindful players. And it's not just the superstars that need to pay attention, because the reality is, if you do a good job defensively and you take away what a team wants to do most, which is get good shots for their good players, well, that means necessarily someone else has to make shots, and maybe they won't be quite the same kind. What Milwaukee did with Grant Williams, with making him shoot all those threes, whatever. That was a choice that they made. I have lots of GIFs in there. In fact, we're going to start doing more of these to where I can tell stories through GIFs. Yep. You have to be, there's no other way to say it. You've got to really be alive in the moment. And I don't think that's something our teams are doing well. I don't think our coaches are very good at this. I don't think our players, I think they're baked. I picked a number of GIFs from last postseason, like a Jrue Holiday one where he blatantly fouled Marcus Smart shooting a 3, up 3 with 3 seconds to go. And the refs somehow only gave Smart 2 free throws. Huge mistake. But either way, Jrue shouldn't have done that. And he's Jrue Holiday. This was AD. Tatum had no points in a Boston game against Utah the other day in the 4th quarter. If you want to win a series, execute better down the stretch. Doesn't mean you'll win, because you have to make the shot. Yep. I don't look at execution as making the shot. I look at it getting the quality of the shot or the quality of the defense, forcing a tough shot. If they hit a bad shot, so be it. But it's something I'm going to be watching a lot going forward, that the lack of execution is, in my eyes, quite alarming.
And so how much of it is coaching, which I'm sure there's some of it, and how much of it is this is now game 77, whatever we're at. These dudes are exhausted physically and mentally. And when you're tired in your brain, you're going to make physical errors all the time.
This is exactly my contention. I said to Henry about it, I think that our guys are exhausted. And I think by the time they get to the postseason, there's a whole other level of exhaustion. Yeah. There's just, we play too many games. I really think, and I'll stop at this because I know we've talked about this a lot. I'd like to see a 1-year run. Let's just see if we play less games, our injuries, our quality of play. We have all these computers marking games.
We can easily track it.
Let's track it, and let's see how the ratings are. 1 year, make a deal. But they won't do it, but that's what I'd like to see.
No, well, again, and I will not belabor the point because we've done that a million hours on this show, but I'm with you, David. Like, it's just, look, I don't know because it hasn't happened, but I would be shocked that if you went down to playing maximum 2 times over a 7-day period, that the quality of play wouldn't be better and injuries wouldn't be decreased as well. Particularly non-contact injuries, not because you can't help contact. That happens. Yeah. It's a contact sport. But non-contact, I am almost positive they'd be down for sure.
Well, contact would be down too because you're playing less. There's less contact and less games. I guess I'm not done on this subject. Yes, I agree. 2 games a week, or I think it'd be interesting to go 5 every 2 weeks. So compromise a little bit. 5 every 2 weeks. Let's start Let's start October 1st. Let's play till June. And let's go 5 every 2 weeks. Someone do the math. 5, and just do the math and see how many we can get, and then let's just see where we're at. The Premier League plays from August until May. But there's nothing wrong with that. We can elongate our seasons. I know why they don't want to. They're afraid of the big bad NFL.
Of course.
Yeah, fuck the NFL.
Well, you know how we feel about that. Yeah. Stop running scared.
Right. Exactly.
Oh, man. So more coaches, David, angry at officials. Monty Williams very upset after yesterday's game, an important game for the Suns. They lost to the Lakers. And in that game, the free throw discrepancy was pretty alarming for Monty Williams. Lakers had 40 free throw attempts, and the Suns had only 26. 46 for the Lakers, 20 for the Suns. My bad. Lakers won 122, 111. And, this comes on the heels of Monty about a week ago or so, maybe 2 weeks ago, complaining about Giannis getting almost 20 free throw attempts by himself, more than the entire Suns team. And look, I know coaches get frustrated with this. That's one of the, because, we've done this enough times, David, where you're in a post game with a coach. When they're looking at the box score, that's one of the first things they look at. What's the free throw discrepancy? Oh, why do they only have whatever? And part of it is for Phoenix, and granted, Durant and Ayton were not playing last night.
Right.
You are the self-proclaimed midi god team, right? This is what your team does. You excel in the mid-range. Well, you know what you're doing when you're shooting a lot of mid-range jumpers? You ain't getting to the rim.
No, that's why the Clippers don't shoot free throws ever.
You know where free throws and fouls get called? At the rim, often, right? And so when you don't have enough, and yes, Devin Booker does go to the rim, and he went to the free throw line 13 times last night.
Did he really?
He went a ton last night. 12. So yeah, so he got his, but everybody else who plays, they're not really guys who get to the rim. But I know what Monty's doing. He's obviously planting a seed.
Priming him up for the postseason.
Exactly. To be like, hey, man, we got to get some calls here too. And I totally understand what he's saying, but we don't want to get that, these guys are pros. They shouldn't, but let that seep into your head and let that be an excuse or a reason why we can't play well, because we're not getting foul calls.
Yeah. When you're rolling and confident, things just, you don't have to create other stuff. When you're not, you kind of
got to create stuff.
It's a distraction a little bit, and maybe it gives you more of an edge. Like, yeah, if we were getting screwed by the refs, whatever. But at the end of the day, Phoenix is just kind of ho-hum.
Right. Yeah. You're ho-hum. And again, no Durant, no Ayton. But, you've got to, and this could be Monty again saying, look, and he only answered one question, and then he walked out of his press conference. So that's clearly a coach who's upset because they're, losing games and trying to light a fire under his team. But as we just mentioned, at this time of the year, these guys are dead. Like, can we just get to the finish line, please? So we'll see how that all breaks down for them going forward. We had some returns last night, David.
Yeah.
Ja Morant returned for the Memphis Grizzlies.
Did you watch?
Oh, I sure did.
So I don't know that I'm not going to, I'll let you finish your thought, but I have to say this now. I don't know that I ever remember a return of a player who had two more spectacular first two baskets.
Well, yes.
Explosive layup and then a really impressive dunk. The kind of dunk where normally I see these things happening. Yeah. I know it's going to happen.
I didn't see it from that angle either. I was like, how'd you do that?
Yeah, that's what I'm like, whoa, what? I was watching Synergy this morning. Like, he dunked that? Yeah, that motherfucker can go. Woohoo!
Oh my!
And we knew he's not been recovering from a leg injury.
Correct.
So his legs are like, hey, let's go. We can do this. Yeah, we're fine. We're feeling good.
He had a nice.
He was levitating, man.
Not for good reasons, but he had a sabbatical away from the team, right? Yeah. Almost 15, 16. So in the end of the season, yes, he's young, but everybody needs rest and recovery. That's a nice time to get that time off ahead of the playoffs. He had 17 points, 4 rebounds, 5 assists. Those two amazing plays David mentioned. A huge block late in that game as well. He looked good coming off the bench. And we talked ad nauseum, David, about, words are what they are. It's going to be about actions, right? And we want to see how you learn and mature from the incidents that have happened. But I thought his post-game quote and his media availability were interesting. And he said he was excited just seeing how the fans reacted to me being back. It definitely helped me a lot. It made me feel good inside. I can't put it in words. I'm numb right now, but thankful for everybody. And I hope that, because the crowd, Memphis crowd's always excellent at basketball. And if you've never been to a Memphis game and you can, I was lucky enough to go last year for the playoffs. It was incredible. Like, they love that team down there. They love him. And the buzz, because he came off the bench when he got up to the scorer's table, was crazy. The crowd was going nuts. They were so happy. I hope that he's able to be aware enough of the moment and to take that in and realize that for what it is, right? And not the other way around, meaning, oh, no matter what I do, these people always got me, as opposed to being, wow, I really had a chance to lose all of this love and adulation from these people. I don't really want to do that. Let me continue to move forward and make it, and be the best version of myself.
That you just said something that really kind of hit me. when and I don't want to preach too much, but I've spent a lot of time talking to young kids, and many of them are black. Many of them are from incredibly challenging environments, and I have to tell them, I can't guarantee that nothing bad will happen to you if you and none of your friends have a gun in your presence. But I can guarantee that no one will be involved in gunplay because there's no gun there. It's the same thing with alcohol and drugs. And I can't tell them when you're driving the speed limit, you won't get in a car accident. I can't control the other drivers. Right. But if you are controlling your environment and none of you have a gun, there's no chance for a gun to be involved in anything to do with you that evening or that day, whatever. And so when you just said what you said, Jarod, in such perfect terms, that stuff's at risk. All that love, Donald Trump said he could shoot someone at Fifth Avenue and still be beloved. It's a bunch of bullshit because they're crazy. Who wants those kind of fans? Right. That is not what happened with Ja. No. If he was involved in a crime involved with a gun, that level of incredible love and devotion for him would severely dissipate. And so that's what's at risk. It's different if you got a DUI, none of that's happening. Right. As long as you're surviving and no one dies, you're beloved to the core. And who wouldn't love, if you love basketball, like the way he plays. And I mean, there's Iverson, there's Jordan, there's Westbrook, there's Rose. Like, these are all former MVPs. He's got special he's play. Just amazing. And so I don't know what his issues are. I don't know. I've read about alcohol issues and drinking. That was never I don't think he's playing games drunk. That's for sure. Right. Yeah. Maybe it's a sign of stress. And so this was one of those outgrowths of that. That's a real thing. I hope that I don't trust the NBA. I don't trust any franchise. I hope that individuals have been able to say to him what you just said, like, you can't guarantee anything. But we can guarantee that those things that we want to stay away from won't be in your life if you stay away from them, which greatly increases your odds of making $500 million in your career, which is, your great granddaughter will go to college because of your talent and work ethic. And your wealth. Yeah. Forever, Morants will be never worrying about anything because of your talent and work ethic. Let's get that clear. And spirit. Yep. Like people love playing with you. Your teammates love you.
They love him.
You galvanize the room. And so you're lucky. There's a lot of really famous celebrities in Hollywood that know how lucky they are. And they take advantage of that luck. There's also plenty of them that haven't, just like there are plenty of athletes. You got to choose, Ja. You got to choose.
No doubt. And David, when this was all going down prior to and the Grizzlies were playing poorly, I was worried about them, right? I said on this show, I was like, not loving it. And we'll get to top 5 later, a little preview.
You do not have Memphis in there.
Listen,
I don't want to hear it.
All I'm going to say is
talk to me at the end.
They're now 2 games up on Sacramento for the second seed in the Western Conference is all I'm going to say. And I will say this about Memphis.
They're 2 games up now on Sacramento?
Now, yes,
okay,
they are.
Yeah, they're 2 seed, right.
Dylan Brooks, this is the thing now with these technical fouls.
Yeah.
He got his 18th. So now every other one he gets going forward, and that includes the playoffs.
Every single one.
Oh, it's everyone, not even every other one.
No, I'm asking you.
Oh.
Every other one? So now at 20, 22, 24?
Correct.
Got it.
So every time he gets every other technical, that's a 1-game suspension. Bro, at this time of the year, cannot afford you missing games. You saw what happened in the playoffs last year.
You're not kicked out of that game. You're kicked out of the next game, right?
Next game.
Okay.
Correct.
I'm just clarifying. Because I don't know the rules.
And that's problematic in a 7-game series, right? That is a big deal.
Right.
So he's got to be better about that. Sticking on Memphis, I will say this. You're often very prescient when it comes to your basketball.
Yes.
So I want to say maybe 2.5 months ago, 3 months ago, you were like, Jarod, I know you're watching. Tripp's offense is coming.
Yeah.
David,
I don't remember that, but
David,
sounds like me.
If he can be what we both think he can be, which is he's probably going to win Defensive Player of the Year. So we already know what he is defensively.
I think so too.
If he is all NBA on the other side of the floor, well, that and John Morant is the cornerstone of a team that contends for championships as long as they're healthy and together for the time that they are together in Memphis. And if he's a legit number 2 option, and actually he's been a number 1 option because Ja's been out. They're like, we got to go to the post. Their half-court offense has been so suspect this year. We're like, Jaron, beat your matchup one-on-one. Okay, I'll do it.
It is, I'll never always be right. Not even close when it comes to player projection.
It's hard.
It's really hard. There's so many variables. You hate to miss on the real talents. But when I watched him play the other day. I don't remember what he did. He was just scoring and defending the perimeter. Like, and who was it that was trying to score in them one-on-one out on the court?
Yeah.
And he was just swallowing them. Yeah. A very good player. Like, are you kidding me? Like, you're trying that on me? And all I kept thinking is Tim Duncan 2.0, Tim Duncan 2.0.
For sure.
And also best prospect in the draft over Luka.
Yeah.
I don't look as stupid as I once did.
Look, first of all, Luka has not won an MVP yet. Let's put that out there. He ain't winning it this year. That's not happening.
Right.
I'm not saying Jaron's winning the MVP.
No, but this Jaren Jackson next year.
Correct.
Right.
Now we're talking.
Like in other words, you might be the most important player on your team that has Ja Morant.
Correct.
Like that is an MVP level player.
Well, and we said this, and this has been true all year. You know who leads the team in estimated plus minus? It ain't Ja Morant.
Yeah, it's
Jaren Jackson.
Triple J. Yeah.
So, listen, if he is that guy, which we all think he could be, look out for them. All right, we mentioned Luka Doncic was back in that game. He had 37 and 17 in a loss. No Kyrie, as he's still dealing with that foot issue. But he is back for them, so that's good signs for Dallas. Look, if they want to make the playoffs, they need both those guys playing. And they're going to outscore teams and score 130 points because they can't defend for shit. Minnesota got Karl-Anthony Towns back. He looked good last night. 22, game high plus 13.
He looked fit. He was happy, smiling a lot. I watched a lot of his clips.
Look, they went all in on this Rudy Gobert deal. We know. We all like Ant-Man and what he can do. Ant-Man, Cat, and Gobert. That should be enough for the core of a team that's pretty good and should be a tough outcome the postseason. Should.
So why they trade D'Angelo Russell, who was playing so well?
Listen,
I don't know. I'm really gonna have to look at Minnesota at the end of the year for some decisions they've made, and then Walker Kessler. We'll talk about awards later. He's not gonna be Rookie of the Year. He's my runner-up. No, he's my third.
I was gonna say I know who your runner-up.
Jalen Williams for sure is number 2, not Mathurin. Yeah, Mathurin's not top 3.
So we're gonna get to this player in a minute. No, I'll save it.
Okay.
No, it's all interesting. I'm with you there. Like there's so many good young players in this league right now. But yeah, he's good. He's good.
Do we need to take a break?
We do need to take a commercial break, and when we come back, we're going to talk about a team that I'm really high on. All right, David. I've been high on this team all year because they have been literally top 5 in adjusted net rating all season long. They have not moved. I'll get to what their issues are in a minute, but I saw them. I mean, I watched them on TV, but I saw them up close this week. They're actually at not a home series, but they're in Brooklyn for a couple of days playing the Nets in sort of that home stance. They played Brooklyn on Tuesday. They play them again tonight. I love this Cleveland Cavaliers team. And I said, I'm watching them. I go, you know why I like them on press row? And people are like, oh, why are you so into these guys? I'm like, well, because they're really fucking good, number one. But they have 2 things that I think matter when it comes down to postseason. They can guard, number 1, and they have 2 guys who can get shots for themselves and for other people. Now, those 2 guys are small, and that is a problem when you're playing against long, rangy wing teams. And David's mentioned before, I worry about the Isaac Okoro spot, right? That wing position when you're going up against Tatum and Brown, that can kind of swallow up Darius Garland and Donovan Mitchell, although Donovan Mitchell is superb. He had this dunk on Tuesday night against Watanabe. I was like, my God, he's so good. Yeah. But David, I like this team. And I was thinking, the vaunted Warriors, the Steph Curry Warriors, that have gone to 6 finals in 8 years and won 4 titles. Before they went on that run, do you know how many playoff series that group won as a group?
Was it 1 against Denver?
1.
Yeah.
1 playoff series.
Yeah. Against Denver the year before.
Yeah.
With Mark Jackson as coach.
And the year before that, they lost in the first round. So they didn't have any wealth of playoff experience and whatever. Now, granted, Steph Curry is a transcendent player and nobody on Cleveland is at that level, but still, why can't Cleveland make a run? Talk me out of why I'm crazy that Cleveland's couldn't make a run to the conference finals.
I'm not going to do that. I have questions about their depth. I have real questions about their depth as well as their fifth starter. I'm a big believer that role players matter, not just stars. And so let's see how the role players do. Mobley's in his second year.
Mm-hmm.
I think they have the best defense in the league this year, don't they?
I think so. Yeah, they're still up top. Yep. Number one.
Yeah. So that plays. They've got to, like, that's why I wrote this article. I think this is the year where really good fourth quarter execution can matter. Mm-hmm. And Donovan and Darius can get good shots for themselves often and facilitate often. And that's, I think, really matters. With those big guys inside, can they get easier shots at the rim and then also defend opponents easier, less easy shots at the rim because of it, because they're there. All that kind of stuff matters. The other teams are better in the East, but, stuff happens. Like we've seen, you're not going to hear me say it could only be 3 yet. Anyway, we'll see how the postseason develops, but it doesn't matter. Cleveland should be excited about this next 5 years.
For sure.
Like they should be knocking on the door, keep tweaking it up, keep adding. I mean, Boston, in the last 2 years, they added Derek White and Malcolm Brogdon.
Huge.
It's no joke.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I'm glad. Cleveland had a great run. I don't love their owner, whatever. And now I think they've kind of put it together again. I'm really happy for them.
No, yeah, and I think the closing lineup, you put Karis LeVert out there, it gives you some size on the wing. I mean, that's there, and he's got playoff experience like that.
He's good.
I'm very curious to see what this team looks like under the stress test of the playoffs.
I want all 4 teams to make it to this semifinals.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Yeah, I really. In the West, it's such a crapshoot, but in the East,
who knows?
I not to say that Miami wouldn't fuck somebody up too. Yeah, I'm not.
It was so good last night.
I'm not. Yeah, I'm not ready to tell you that. So it's really 5 teams, and is that 4 versus 5?
4 versus 5 right now in the East, I believe, is Brooklyn and Cleveland. I think.
Yeah, I thought Miami's going to pass Brooklyn though.
Oh no, it's Cleveland, New York Knicks. That's the one. Yep, Cleveland Knicks is 4-5 right now.
Miami beat New York last night.
Yep, and they're so Brooklyn and Miami are basically tied.
Yeah,
but I think Miami has the tiebreaker, so that would be Philly. Ooh, would be Philly, Miami. Man, that's so unfortunate. You don't want the Heat in round 1, and
you don't.
Jimmy Butler.
You don't. Yeah, it's gonna be a wild East. Yeah, we keep talking about it. I can't wait. I don't want to. I'm not. At my age. At my age, I'm not even kidding. I don't want to look forward. People always say, "Are you excited about so-and-so?" No. I'm just here right now. I don't want to speed anything up. Every day is precious to me. That dude, the actor, I don't watch The Wire, but the actor on The Wire died at 60.
Yes.
I don't know how he died.
Yeah.
I really hope it's something.
Causes,
but what's natural at 60? That's scary.
Well, a heart attack,
I don't trust that. Yeah, that's still not natural at 60. At 58, I'm not thinking about tomorrow. I just want to focus on today. But in the back of my mind, that I told my wife, and I just don't see her very much tonight. These games are coming nonstop, and I said, postseason starts soon, and she said, "Well, is that going to slow you down?" I'm like, not really. Yeah. Well, the good news is she'll be asleep, unfortunately. But after the East games are over, I may not watch the West as closely. Not as interested in those teams. The East games are going to be battles.
The first round of the playoffs, they do it TNT, and they like the 40 whatever games and however many. I mean, it is a grind first round of the playoffs because literally the games are every night and multiple games.
I used to have to, when I first started in the media with the Scout Sync with ESPN in 2007, I think I had to do a report after every game. And then I had to do reports for the next round.
And those West Coast games.
Oh, it was, I mean, I never should have done it, especially for $45,000, whatever they were paying me as a part-time guy back then. That was a grind. Yeah, grind.
For sure.
But now I don't have to do that. I'll be watching.
We're just watching now.
And I think I'm going to do some GIF stories.
Yeah.
Like Zach Lowe does some things like that. Substack have never allowed us to do as many as we can do now. So I think I could do some really cool stories after a lot of these games.
And stay tuned, guys, because we'll probably do some tactics during the playoffs. Because I think Coach will see some really interesting things that teams do. hopefully, right, the smart ones anyway, what kind of counters they can come up with. Like, oh, this is not working.
Yeah.
What can we do to solve this particular problem we have right now? Something near and dear to Coach Thorpe's heart is, of course, player development, because that is what he does literally for a living. And you want to talk about Malik Monk, who's on the Kings, someone who, came out of Kentucky, was clearly got talent. Let's also be clear for fans.
Yeah.
Everyone in the NBA has talent, or you're not going to make it in this league. Everyone can play basketball. But for 99.9% of people, coaching, there's so many factors that go into, can you be good and realize your full potential? Most people don't, because as David often mentions, teams suck, coaches suck. And sometimes also on the player too, they don't work hard enough to make shit happen.
Or they're playing the wrong position, wrong strategy. Yeah, Malik Monk is having a career year in assists. Like, everyone thought he was a black hole shooter. He's doing well. I think he's over 7 per 40 now. The NBA does it per 40. They do a lot. I think it was ESPN has it per 40. Yeah, they do. It's ESPN's stats. He's improved defensively this year. He was good last year too, but this, after 3 years in the league, people thought, I always think about this. I've said this before, probably on the show, the great quote from Men in Black, where Will Smith sees those crickets smoking cigarettes the first time, and Tommy Lee Jones sits him down in a park somewhere, you would know where, in New York City. I don't remember where it is, some famous spot. And he said, like 500 years ago, everyone just knew everything revolved around the earth. And 100 years ago, everyone just knew the world was flat. He said, 5 minutes ago, you just knew we were alone in this universe. Imagine what we'll know tomorrow. I always think about that with player development. I refuse to believe players can't get better throughout their whole career. As their bodies change, you have to pivot for sure. But Malik was 22 after 3 seasons. Like, why are we so convinced this is who he is? So I'm so happy to see. I don't know Malik. I'm so happy he's having success in Sacramento. We have to stop branding guys with permanent ink and use pencil.
David, you talk about this all the time. And it's something I think about often too. I mean, we talked about him with Memphis, Jaren Jackson Jr., right? We thought, Tim Duncan 2.0. Guys were, putting over after 2-3 years. This guy's never going to be. You know how old he is now? He's 23 now. He's younger than John Morant by like a couple months.
Who is?
Jaren Jackson Jr.
Yeah, exactly. Right.
He's
just getting started.
Just getting started.
Yeah.
It's like when I hear people say, oh, the draft, they're coming up in June. Only 2 players. It's like, how do you possibly know that? How do you know there's only 2 players in this draft?
In 1990, I got married, okay? Maybe this happened a year after we got married, whatever. My wife was working her way up in a private company, a private family that owned like 18 Midas franchises in Florida. That really was a venture capital firm that were investing in Midas franchises, and then they kind of started running them. And she was director of HR, but she wasn't at that point yet. She moved her way up, and they had a big meeting for all the managers of these places and all the executives at a beach place near where we lived. And so, of course, we went, and I got to meet the owners of the company for the first time. A relatively young family. It was a father who was giving it to his children, who were in their 30s at this point, his 2 sons. And I spent some time with them hanging out, never thought twice about it. I'm 26 years old, Jarod, right? 27 years old, maybe. And I'm a teacher and a coach, whatever, and barely making any money. And the owner said to her after the meeting, she told me this after the weekend, they said, he's a sharp guy. He's going to do well. And she said, like, really? Like, she loved me for me. She never thought we'd have any money or anything or real success. She was in love with me, and she was not a shallow person. And that mattered most to her. She never envisioned we would live in a nice house and all of that. We live in a 2-bedroom apartment. We had a dog in a 2-bedroom house. That's all we had. 2-bedroom apartment. Paid $500 a month. I worked, right? And she gave me a lot of love, and I got some ambition, and whatever happened, happened. Why would players be any different, Jarod?
They should.
Like, why would we ever think they'd be different? No, we got to love them. We have to teach them and guide them, and we have to hold them accountable when they fuck up, which I don't think coaches do a very good job of. They just sit you. That isn't the answer, as you know. You got to play them. Yep. That's the oxygen, and let them work out the mistakes they made. You do that for your other players that were high draft picks and all that. We got to give all these guys a chance to fail over and over. And so, to me, Malik is one example of a guy that, I hope Sacramento wins a playoff series the Sacramento City, but I also, Malik hits the game winner in one of those games. And And the joy he'll have of after, again, I've never met him, no clue what he's like. I like the way he plays. I like that he's still growing as a player. Better passing this year, better defense. Those things don't always improve. I also like the fact that Mike Brown has built a system that allowed him to be more than just a shooter-scorer. And that's a message to all coaches. Build a system to your roster. Don't try to fit your roster into your system.
We say it all the time, right? The pragmatic coaches tend to do better, right? Who aren't wedded. This is how we have to play. You have basketball philosophies that you generally believe in, ethos.
Yeah.
Shit, I'm going to work around whatever my players do best. Your job as a coach is to put them in the best position to succeed so that we can succeed as a whole. That requires work, right? Yeah. Like, you got to work to do that.
Work, study, try, pivot.
Yeah.
Try things out. You have to have that mentality instead of we get just the opposite of most of these teams. Same with the NFL. They're also afraid of innovation. They get their ass kicked by the innovators.
The player I was thinking of before when you had mentioned, Mathurin not on your rookie of the year ballot.
Well, I have a hard time picking a guy who's not the best rookie on his team.
Well, that's exactly where I was going. If you had a full ballot, where would Andrew Nembhard be on your rookie of the year ballot?
He wouldn't be top 3. I feel like, and I know you agree with him, Paolo's is the rookie of the year. Now, hold on. Now, I wouldn't say easy.
Okay.
We got 8 more games left. Jalen Williams is coming.
And if they make the playoffs, we're going to make the play-in anyway.
Right.
So.
I would give Paolo the edge for sure. I mean, in this month, Paolo's averaging 20. I don't know how many rebounds. 20 points, 4 plus assists, maybe 7 rebounds. I think 7. Like, he's killing it.
Yes,
and the Magic look fine. Yeah. They're not terrible.
No.
They're not an easy win every night. Jalen Williams really coming on. I think I have him at 2, and I have Kessler at 3, and nobody else would get a vote unless you have to pick 4 and 5. Mm-hmm. But for all NBA, I mean, Andrew Nembhard last night. I was watching
all rookie teams. You mean? Yeah.
I'm sorry. Yeah. All rookie NBA for the NBA. I was watching the Raptors versus Pacers last night, and he had 25 and 10 and played amazing defense on Siakam, who in the fourth quarter killed the Pacers, but he wasn't guarding but a couple times because they would switch around. They all switch. He beat the Bucks a week ago with like 28 and 7. He beat the Warriors in San Francisco back when it was hard to beat. Well, Golden State still was good at home in San Francisco. The guys had like, I think, 20 points 3 of the last 4 games with Tyrese out. And by the way, he started a bunch of games, and he's playing out of position except when Tyrese is out. If Tyrese had been out all season, Andrew might be a rookie of the year. So Gonzaga deserves a lot of credit.
All rookies with 20 points, 10 assist games by far.
He can really play, and he's the best. He and Dyson Daniels are the best perimeter defenders in the class by far. Kessler is the best defender overall. He's one of the best defenders in the league. Yeah, that's why when I look at the Minnesota trade, they got to be kicking themselves like, man, we got to draft that guy instead. He was a late first-round pick. Mm-hmm. Utah's got to be laughing at that. But, yeah, I only say this. I know Andrew. I met him this summer when he's doing his pre-draft training. The guy that did the training I mentored. Indiana's got something going on, guys.
They do.
And I don't love Ben Mathurin and haven't. He can really score. Very limited beyond that. And I don't know that he'll continue to grow as a scorer the way Tyreek Evans never grew as a scorer. Ben's a better shooter than Tyreek was, but he's not a great shooter. He had some good moments this year, good months even. But Tyrese is 23. Nembhard's 23. Turner just on an extension. They could trade Turner and get something. People say OG Anunoby wants to come there where he played Indiana. Toronto might do some things to shake up a team that doesn't do anything this year again. Yeah, and they got 3 first-round picks this year, Indiana. Yeah. Indiana's Nesmith has become – I didn't like him in Boston. I like him in Indiana. He knows his role. Jalen Smith is a serviceable backup. TJ McConnell's having a great season. He can finally shoot, and if he could shoot all his career, he'd be a starter somewhere. Indiana's, we're forgetting about them. They probably don't make the play-in. Maybe they do. But they've got a lot of interesting young pieces. Rick Carlisle's got to be thrilled.
Well, and speaking of Carlisle, I mean, he's a lot like a lot of these, coaches who really, with young guys, they get that trigger finger like, ugh. But so for Andrew to earn that confidence from Rick as a young player in this league, he's doing some obviously some right things, right?
Well, it's his defense more than anything. And also, Rick did a good job of letting Ben come off the bench. Ben as a starter would be nearly as good, especially because the other guys are better players too. But on the second unit, he's one of the top bench scorers in the league. As a rookie, that's unheard of. And it's one reason why they're not as good is they've got two rookies playing a lot. But I think it was good for Ben, who would not do as well against starters, in my opinion, nor would he have as many opportunities. So Rick handled this young team very well. And because of it, they're the OKC. They're the next OKC. They got to get lucky this year in the draft a little bit. But even without it, they've got an all-NBA level player now in Tyrese. I happen to think Nembhard has a chance to be very similar to that level, more of a Drew Holiday type because of the defensive metrics and all-NBA level defensive player.
Wow.
Miles Turner is a good, big, legit 5. Yeah, and Buddy Hield's a great shooter. He's in a contract year. We'll see what happens with him. I just think they've got some interesting things going on. We shouldn't forget them for next year.
They sure do. Speaking of like teams coming up and getting lucky in the draft, Sweet 16 tips off tonight. This is now the round where performances are really going to stand out. And whomever does, individually, that's going to be a name you hear, especially if they're draft eligible or whatever. It's going to really cause people to like, I always think back to Derek Williams, like beating Duke and scoring and whatever he did in that game. It didn't quite work out in the NBA for him, but you do a big time performance against one of these blue blood schools on this stage, it tends to push your draft stock up a bit. But Coach, what are you seeing about Sweet 16, about players getting ready to declare for the NBA draft?
Well, I'll tell you one anecdote, and I can say his name, the player's name, because the player's not involved in this at all. I watched Baylor play Creighton last week. I watched all those games on Sunday. I watched Alabama play, see Brandon Miller. I'll be writing about it soon enough. But Baylor's got a couple guys I like. One in particular is a senior that I wanted to see. I think they have a kid named Adam Flagler. I think he's the best shooter in the draft. They're out, so it doesn't matter. But Andrew Nembhard's brother, Ryan, scored 30. Dominated the game with 3 or 4 NBA. Creighton's got 3 or 4 NBA prospects, according to people. I don't really follow it closely. And so all I will say is this. An agent I spoke to after all the games we're going through, he's interested in who's going to get drafted where, and I have no clue. I just haven't paid attention yet. But he said to me, I said, well, listen, when a kid like Nembhard scores 30 in a big game against a loaded team, and his brother is doing well in the NBA, like he probably is going to be in the draft. And the agent said, you think he's ready? And I said, like, who gives a fuck? Like, what does that have to do with anything? I was so surprised. He laughed. He's like, you're right. I said, when do we draft for readiness? Why would we even do that? You think lawyers care when they draft you out of law school that you're ready to win a case? No. They have no idea how to practice law. They know how to get through law school and pass the bar exam. Maybe. Doesn't mean they know how to practice law. In fact, they don't. Why would the NBA be any different? Come on. It took to get to Kevin Durant in year 3 was a net negative plus minus. In year 3, after having, I thought, the best college season of all time. Have we ever... Maybe Zion passed him.
He was so good.
It was a joke. And 3 more years later, he still was bad. For the Sonics/Thunder were better when he was on the bench. So what are we talking about here? The question is always, listeners who are following and not sick of this, it's always, is the NBA ready for you? And in the case of Ryan Nembhard, I have no clue. That I don't know. But I know this. The fact that he is only a sophomore shouldn't mean a damn thing. It does that. None of that matters. The NBA has to have chewed on you enough. Right. Giannis Antetokounmpo was clearly a top 3. I haven't looked at that draft, but I'm sure he was top 3, top 2, top 1. He went 15.
Yep.
Because they weren't ready. Yep. The NBA wasn't ready for him. Didn't matter if he was ready for the league or not, which he wasn't. Who cares? They have to have seen you enough and chewed on you and watched your tape and talked to everyone, done their investigations. And so the guy in the NCAA tournament that's never been noticed before and suddenly plays great, that guy shouldn't come out. But in the case, for example, of Ryan Nembhard, who played at Montverde with Scotty Barnes and Kate Cunningham and Moses Moody, as I said to this agent, just remember, because the Montverde guys are 90 minutes from me.
Yeah.
When that dude woke up at 10 o'clock in the morning, 8 o'clock in the morning, was 15, he rolled out of bed and played hoops with Scotty Barnes and Moses Moody and Cade Cunningham, whoever else was there. Harlan Beverly, who's a good player from Miami, who's still playing right now. Like the average kid at 15 went to school and then played pickup with a bunch of terrible players.
Yeah.
That dude, and by the way, his older brother growing up his whole life is in the NBA as a starter.
Yeah.
So if anyone's ready, it's the guy that's only
ready.
known NBA players, but it doesn't even matter. So the NBA should be ready for these kinds of guys. I guess Creighton's kind of an upstart. Maybe they're a 6 seed. I'm not really sure. 5 or 6 seed. But the point is, like FAU's got some really good players. But no NBA guys have been watching them till very lately. So probably, unless they're seniors, they're going to have to wait. I know FAU's coach really well, Dusty May. Great guy. I'm really rooting for him. I thought I had date night tonight with my wife. No NBA games on the schedule for me tonight. And then I looked, I'm like, oh, honey, I'll take care of you with some good food, but I have a bunch of games. I have to watch college. Last 2 nights. I don't even care about the Final Four as much as I do the Sweet 16. Because there'll be a bunch of games the next 2 nights still, so I'll watch.
For sure. I was looking back at Giannis's draft class.
Yeah.
So
Who won?
He was taking 15th. Rudy Gobert was taking 27th.
Yeah.
By far. I mean,
swing and a miss.
CJ McCollum's was in that draft. Victor Oladipo, so good players in that draft. KCP, but Rudy and Giannis, by far the best teams taking in that draft. And 15th and 27th. Anthony Bennett taking first in that.
Wow, that was the Anthony Bennett draft. Yeah. Who went second?
Victor Oladipo.
Yeah, I mean, it's not even close.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm saying. Like, they weren't ready for him. They just, Giannis, if Giannis was playing at Kansas, he's number 1 for sure. For sure. Because you're not, even if he scored 6 points a game or 8 points a game, whatever, which he wouldn't, he would score more than that, I'm sure. The NBA's got to be ready for you, not the other way around.
Yeah, no, it's so
now, if you mentally, emotionally can't handle being on your own, that's very different. I'm just saying, as a basketball player, it does matter if you're ready to help a team or not.
We had a conversation off air, and this is kind of all related because we're talking about young players coming into the league, et cetera. As you guys know, we follow the NBA here, but I keep my eyes open on other things happening around all levels of basketball. The Gatorade National Player of the Year, boys basketball, is Cameron Boozer. And last name may sound familiar to you because his father is Carlos Boozer, a sophomore, 6'9", being named best player in the country by a lot of these draft sites and metrics. It's like, regardless of class, sophomore, junior, senior, they're like, he is the best basketball prospect in the country. And when you win that award as a sophomore, that's a big deal. By the way, Imani Bates, the only other sophomore that won that award. LeBron James won it twice, junior year and senior year. I mean, but
not as a sophomore.
Not as a sophomore. He won his junior, senior. Look, it doesn't mean because you win it, you're going to be doesn't mean anything. No. But it is a sign that says you are starting to show some things that suggest you could be very good. And I thought that was very interesting to see, a young kid like that who just won his second back-to-back state title with his twin brother, Caden. Pretty impressive. Pretty impressive.
Yeah, I told you, I've never seen him. I've heard like really special things about him. And I was in a city yesterday, Lakeland, Florida, where the state tournament is held every year. It's like an hour from my house, and a lovely little community. And I was talking to the waiter at lunch that I had, and he said, "Man, there were a lot of Miami fans here a couple weeks ago for the Final Four. Miami is loaded with talent. Really, I always felt it was one of the best metros in the country. When I used to travel a lot, DC is great, New York is fine, Chicago is great, LA is great. Miami's right there with them, and tough as nail players.
Dade County, right? So that county in particular, like you feel like lot of really good.
Special, yeah.
And I guess there got to be some the greater LA, the Los Angeles Metro County, right?
For sure, LA. I always felt the Miami guys, I just thought had an edge to them. I'm biased as a Floridian, but my parents are from Miami too. I just always thought they had more of an edge. They really do, as DC guys do. I've never been a big fan of the New York playground high school kids. Not playground. The playgrounds are amazing. I've always thought there was just too much hype, which is unfair for the player. It's not the player's fault. I don't hold the player at fault for that.
It's living off of past success, right? Less off of current, right? Because there was a stretch with
Marbury is the greatest high school guard I've ever seen.
So good. He was so
Mr.
good.
Fundamental, physical as hell. Just the best I've ever seen. I coached against him. I beat him once, and then he beat my ass once.
Kenny Anderson was
incredible. I had Kenny after Kenny was already a later pro when I had him in my gym. Where's Steve Francis from?
want to say
Houston, maybe Texas. I don't know.
I think
was he not New York?
Is he from Maryland? Let me look like Steve Francis. Right?
Yeah, he might be Maryland. You're right because he went to Maryland.
I know he went to college at Maryland.
Yeah, because that dude was unbelievable when I had him.
Yep, he was Tacoma Park, Silver Springs.
Park, yeah. What Silver Springs? Yeah. So yeah, I mean, the big cities always have great players. So do rural areas. I've always argued on behalf of rural players too. In the case of Boozer, it helps that Daddy was such a good player, Olympian, national champion at Duke.
Yeah, that helps.
Yeah. The second round pick, mind-bogglingly, I have no idea what happened there, but he should have been a first round pick, clearly. But and I've heard he's a great kid too. That's what I've heard. Like really, really good young man. A lot of these NBA players have terrific sons and daughters, I'm sure. I just don't see the daughters play. Bronny James, I love watching him play. Plays the right way. I was talking to Corey Brewer, who has a son who plays a lot of NBA. He's young. A lot of NBA players in that community and their sons, and he's like, it's great. The dads all know they're not stupid crazy because, listen, AAU can be crazy with parents.
Oh, please.
And most of the dads handle it pretty well. That they play in the NBA. They're not trying to make a spectacle of things and embarrass their kids.
And before we get to our top five, who we were talking to so these young kids, right? A kid like Karen Boozer winning back-to-back state titles. And I asked you offline. I think it's a good convo for our listeners to hear. Yeah. How important is these kids winning when they're young matter to their overall development later on? As they get to be potentially pros or college players.
Yeah, I mean, to me, when I'm scouting, I'm evaluating process. What are you playing winning basketball? I can't hold it against you if your teammates are, if your coach sucks. Are you making winning plays? Are you unafraid to get your face beat in? I watched a teenage NBA player the other night played against Jonas Valanciunas, who is a gigantic man.
Huge.
And this teenager fought him hard. And I thought, okay, that's a winner. Like, he is unafraid. And so I look for that for high school players and projecting at college players going up. Are they making we plays, not me plays that, I told you with Scotty Barnes a year ago. I look at whatever. I think that it matters. But if they don't make winning plays, you have to consider, are they getting coached right? If the coach is good and the player is just really selfish, that to me is a red flag.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, it's worth paying attention, right? Because I mean, this is how
I think so.
You try to figure out, and as you always say, players can mature and get better. You can teach them how to make winning plays, right? This is where it's on the coaching, but also on the player to be receptive and willing to get coached, right? And
for sure,
they're not. It is what it is. All right, top five. I teased it. Let's go. Let's start with your fifth place line. Who's on it?
The Nuggets just eked in at 5 over Sacramento.
So, because they dropped to third and because I'm crazy, Sacramento bumped out. They're on the 6th line for me. So the five line is Cavaliers and the Grizzlies. Look, man, back to being 2 games up on the Kings for the number 2 seed. John Morant coming back now. We already talked about Jaren Jackson Jr. Listen, this team's good. They're good.
So I have the Cavs at 4.
No, I got the Nuggets at 4 because they're.
I figured you had to because there's no way you're putting a 2 seed over a 1 seed.
Still
unless Denver has lost 10 straight, they've won 2 in a row.
Yeah.
So and then I've got Boston, Philly, Milwaukee, same as last week.
Same. That's the pecking order right now.
That's where it is. Boston had a big win, I think, last night. Mm-hmm. They're my 3 favorite teams still.
This quick before we go, I don't know if you saw this. Logan Murdoch did a profile or a sit down with Jaylen Brown of the Celtics on the Ringer, and some interesting quotes came out of that from Jaylen Brown. I mean, I don't think anything to be like super alarming about, but Jaylen's very like direct and honest in his when you ask him questions, and people ask him about his long-term future in Boston. He's like, look, as long as they want me here, I'll be here, but we got to see how things develop. And the reality of it is that these guys are all human, and Jaylen knows his name was brought up in trade requests multiple times. All right, like when Kevin Durant was asking out of Brooklyn, his name was the first name at the top of the list. Right, he knows that, and he said it in the interview. Katie and Jason were working out together this summer. They're boys. I know that. So I got Brad and Jason on the phone, being like, "So what's good? Am I staying here? Like, what's the deal?" And there is listen. You know where you stand when a guy calls you up asking like that, right? He's being supposed to be direct and upfront. You want me here or not? Right? Brad said, no, you're here. It's all good. But I appreciated that from him, just being like, look, As long as the team is up front and they want me, cool. If any of that changes, I'm going to do what's necessary for me to get in the best possible situation. I thought that was pretty interesting. Yeah, I know.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah,
and he's a great player. So
I love him. I love him.
He really is. And look, I think, of course, we talked about the pickup of Derek White and Malcolm Brogdon, how important that is. We know about Tatum. To me, NBA Finals. If he is the second best player on that team, and
if Jalen is,
yes, or even if he's sometimes better than Tatum on certain nights, then they're winning the NBA championship.
Right.
Because he's that good. So we'll see. All right, guys. Enjoy the weekend. We will see you next week. Take care.